I suspect that what goes on in every man's head might be very, very different. Well, I was doing some experiments. And so what I would do is I would count, trying to count to a minute. Actually, it took, say I'd count to 48 and it would be 1 minute. And I would try to find out what affected that time sense and whether I could do anything at the same time as I was counting. And I discovered many things I could read perfectly all right while I was counting and get an idea of what it was about. But I couldn't speak. I couldn't say anything. Because, of course, I was sort of, when I count, I sort of spoke to myself inside. I would say 1, 2, 3, sort of in the head. Well, I went down to the breakfast, and there was John Tukey was a mathematician down at Princeton at the same time, and we had many discussions, and I was telling him about these experiments and what I could do. And he says, that's absurd, he says. He says, I don't see why you would have any difficulty talking whatsoever, and I can't possibly believe that you could read. So I couldn't believe all this, but we calibrated him. It was 52 for him to get to 60 seconds or whatever. I don't remember the numbers now. And then he'd say, all right, he said, what do you want me to say? Mary had a little lamb. I can speak about anything. Blah, 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 blah. 52, it's a minute. And he was right. And I couldn't possibly do that. And he wanted me to read because he couldn't believe it. And then we compared notes, and it turned out that when he thought of counting, what he did inside his head when he counted was he saw a tape with numbers that when clink, 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 the tape would change with the numbers printed on it, he could see. Well, since it's sort of an optical system that he's using and not voice, he could speak as much as he wanted. But if he had to read, then he couldn't look at his clock. Whereas for me, it was the other way. And that's where I discovered, at least in this very simple operation of counting, the great difference in what goes on in the head when people think they're doing the same thing. And so it struck me, therefore, if that's already true at the most elementary level, that the imageries and method by which we're storing it all and the way we think about it could be really, if we could get into each other's heads, entirely different. And in fact, why somebody sometimes has a great deal of difficulty understanding a point which you see as obvious, and vice versa, it may be because it's a little hard to translate what you just said into his particular framework and so on. Now I'm talking like a psychologist, and you know I know nothing about this.